What's up, everybody? Today we're looking at the details of the Division 2. There is so much new information out there. We're gonna run through all of it. What's new, what's coming back. We'll look at the gameplay, gears, skills, talents, specializations, weapon mods, the story. We're gonna look at all of it. We have too much to talk about. Just stick with me. This is everything we know about the Division 2 in hopefully under 10 minutes. Okay, let's start with the story of the game. It begins 7 months after the events of the first game. The virus has pretty much burned itself out, and it looks like you're going to be new to Washington, D.C., and probably barely made it out from wherever you've been the last 7 months with minimal gear and not very many supplies. Now, if you look close at the cinematic trailer, you can see a dead hand with a flickering Division watch on the wrist, which pretty much confirms that the Division was not successful at all at taking back control of D.C., and you're going to become that last hope. Now, I think the story of the game will use that same basic formula of different factions being formed around the city, fighting for control. We've only seen one faction so far, that's the True Sons, which is described as a bunch of ex-military guys with a huge stockpile of weapons, and the guy in charge of them is an ex-JTF officer. We saw these guys shooting the concrete gun that locks you into place, making me think that every faction may have a unique signature weapon of their own, whether it be some high-grade military tech or as simple as shooting concrete out of a gun. But as far as how the story will actually play out, it will most likely be that same rollout of factions as you progress through the story. You may start with some simple characters that you're fighting against all the way up to some military style like the LMB that we saw in the first game. But exactly as far as the details for the story, we can only really guess for now. But I do hope they go a little deeper this time with characters and narrative while still having the collectibles, especially the echoes and the cell phone recordings, to give those gritty details of people's personal experiences throughout the event. It made the story a little bit deeper and was a nice touch in the last game. Okay, moving on to the big one, how the game actually plays. While the core concept of the game is the same, it looks like they've really tried to make it much more realistic, or really as realistic as they could with a contemporary world RPG. Now, the bullet sponging is by far the biggest issue that they've addressed with this game. You'll actually see armor being broken away from yourself and enemies instead of just clip after clip of headshots that barely scratch anybody. But with that fix will come more aggressive and tactical NPCs. Enemies are going to rush you more, they're going to catch you off guard, they're going to make your squad back off and regroup, or really you're going to risk being overrun and swiftly murdered. Basically, everything that was promised for the first game that didn't quite live up to the hype. Now, the display has also been reworked, and it looks like they've actually removed more than they've added on the screen. The first thing I noticed was the lack of skills active. You'll only have one skill that can be active at a time. Now, it does look like Specializations will add a skill, but we'll talk about those in just a minute. Anyway, some skills are returning from the first game. We saw the Seeker Mine in the gameplay trailer at E3, but we've also seen some gear talents mention sentry turrets and the ballistic shield, so some skills will be returning. But signature skills and any skills involving quick healing won't be in this game. You also won't be able to see your teammates' active skills. You won't be able to see their skills cooling down to know how long you have until they can use it again. But you can still keep track of their health. A lot about health has changed. Health segments are gone. Instead, you'll have a fully solid health bar with your armor showed in segments above it. Now, with health, med packs have changed too. You'll still be able to carry 5 of them, but using a med kit will be totally different than last time where you could just pop it off and keep running. You're going to have to hold the med kit button for a couple seconds while you can literally watch your character swap out armor plates, which it'll give you full health and full armor, but you have to manage to hold the button the entire time and heal without getting hit. Now, another slight change that I think is going to keep the PvP parts of the game moving a lot quicker is the unsafe mark. In the first game, after your 3rd time being revived in a certain time frame, you became marked unsafe, which basically meant if you were knocked down again, you were going to die immediately. No one could revive you. Now, this time around, if you're knocked down once, you are marked unsafe for 30 whole seconds. So 30 seconds, you have to make sure that you are not going to get knocked down again. It'll end in just your death, but also it makes long-range combat and sniping actually possible in this game, which it wasn't in the first one. But anyways, moving on. Looking into gear and mods, they've both changed just a little bit. Each piece of gear will now be tied to a brand or manufacturer, adding up to a full set. Each brand's gear is going to have talents and bonuses that lean towards different playstyles, and if you have multiple pieces of gear from the same brand, you'll get some stat bonuses like you did in the first game with gear sets. And while each brand will probably lean towards a specific playstyle, both gear and weapons will still roll random for stats and talents. There's going to be two types of talents on gear. Common talents, which will give you a decent bonus and will be activated upon equipping the item, while advanced talents will give you a more powerful bonus, but they'll also have stat and equipment requirements to activate them, and kind of in the same way that they did with your firearm, stamina, and electronics in the first game. But those attributes will be gone from this game. Instead of boosting up with firearms, stamina, and electronics, the gear stats are going to be the main focus of your build. Now, gear will still be color-coded with the high-end gear you're looking for still marked in gold, but a returning late addition to the first game is the loadouts option. You can save your favorite gear setups to make it easy to switch from one build to another in a few seconds, as opposed to the nightmare it was to have multiple builds in the first game before loadouts were added. And while there are a lot of complaints about inventory management in the first game, it seems to me that most people forget that at its core, this is an RPG. If you don't stop to see what you've picked up, it's going to add up quick, and it's going to take a long time to sort through. Now, another big change that seems questionable to me is that weapon mods will now be unlockable instead of being dropped loot. Once unlocked, you can use them on any weapon, which comes with stat bonuses like the first game, but I don't know if they're going to be the same for everybody. Are the stats going to be rolled? I don't think so. They're probably just going to be set weapon mod stats. It may take some depth out of your build, but there are still a lot of build options, so I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. Okay, almost there. By far the biggest change to the gear and weapons are the specializations we've heard so much yet so little about. Once you reach level 30, you'll be able to pick a specialization. It will grant you another extra powerful weapon on top of all of your other gear. So far we've seen the survivalist with the explosive bolt crossbow, the demolitionist with a grenade launcher, and the sharpshooter with that big Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle, but the developers have hinted that there are more coming. Now, enemies will drop ammo for your specialized weapon. They'll be marked in blue, but the regular ammo crates won't fill the special weapon ammo. The great part about these specializations, though, is that they're not locked in. Your progression will be saved for each one, even if you switch between them, between missions, between whatever. As you switch between all of them, all your progression will be saved. Specializations will also add certain skills and stat bonuses, as well as special grenades like incendiary or flashbangs. We've seen special skills like the Hive and the Assault Drone in both gameplay and trailers, so I cannot wait to see what others will actually be in the final game. Now, when you reach level 30, I imagine the specialization choices are going to point you towards the best one for the gear you have equipped at the time. And also, being that this is a co-op game, they've also added clans to the social aspect, I guess with hopes of making matchmaking easier, although I've never actually had trouble finding players through random matchmaking. And finally, we are here at Raids. The Division 2 will have 8-player raids. If you played any incursions from the first game, I imagine the new raids in the Division 2 will be along the lines of those, but with probably a much greater scale. Now, how the chat will work is still a big question for me. In The Last Stand DLC, you have teams of 8, but each team is split into squads of 4, so efficient communication is not always guaranteed. But the developers have said that these endgame raids will be very difficult, and prepping for the proper build with your team around your team will be crucial in completing them. The big questions still to be answered for this game are all about the Dark Zone. We know that the new map will be larger than the first. It will actually be pretty close to a full-scale Washington, D.C., but where on the map and how large of an area the Dark Zone will cover are still widely unknown. The developers have confirmed that it will definitely be in the game, but they have been very quiet about it. So really, we're just going to have to wait and see. Well, that is all of it. If you're still watching, thanks for hanging in there. Now, I know there is a ton of information pouring out about this, so let me know what I missed in the comments. I think it's going to be a lot of fun regardless, but I hope they fix the issues as well as they say. We'll know more when the beta drops, probably next January. You can sign up for the beta release on Ubisoft's website right now. But it is about that time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and go ahead and click that SHG button to subscribe to our channel and go check out all of our content over at ShredHouse Gaming. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.